Just before we get into this video, guys, if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, the links are here. And if you also want to support me on Patreon as well and help out my channel, that would be absolutely awesome as well. But let's get on with the video. What are your favourite missing stories of Doctor Who? Would you do a ranking video of them as well? I just said Fury from the Deep and Evil of the Daleks. And I may, but then again, there's less and less stories that are missing now because they're being reanimated and stuff, so we'll have to see on that one. What are your thoughts on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Do you think he will be in the Old Trafford dugout next season? Of course he will. Ole's at the wheel. Tell me, how good does it feel? Fucking mint. What if he's mint? He's mint. What properly got you into YouTube, like the first type of videos you were interested in that spiraled into watching videos daily? Honestly, it was Batman March. I watched his figure adventures, his figure reviews, stuff like that, and I just couldn't wait for his next upload. And then obviously I discovered other YouTubers doing different things, but it all originated from Batman March. If Doctor Who was to return with a different doctor and showrunner, would you watch the new series? Personally, I would give it a fair chance. I'm already sick of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor after one series with her cringe faces and awful stories, so I'm just waiting for the next Doctor. Makes me sound awful, I know. To be honest, you're not alone in that. There are people that do feel like that. Some people will tell you it's because of sexism or it's because of prejudice or anything like that. Maybe people just genuinely don't like the series of Doctor Who. Maybe people just genuinely don't like this Doctor. Me personally, I think I said it earlier, Chibnall is the major problem. At this current rate, I don't feel like Whittaker is the Doctor yet. She's just not giving me a performance where I'm just like, yeah, that's the Doctor. And you can bring the bad writing into it, but Eccleston said, run, and he was immediately the Doctor. I'd definitely give a new showrunner a try. And I'd definitely give a new Doctor a try. I always will. Would you like to see a multi-Doctor story with Whittaker and a male Doctor? Well, considering Whittaker's the only Doctor who isn't male, I suppose it'd have to be at this point. You know, I'm not overly fond of the multi-Doctor stories. I love the 3 Doctors and I love Day of the Doctor, and the 5 Doctors has its moments, but it's one of them that always confuses me because I'm just like, you should remember this. Or, why are you arguing about things like that? Like, there's a bit in the 2 Doctors where Colin says to Patrick Troughton's Doctor, oh, I've always wanted one of those. But you've had one of those because you're talking to yourself. It just gets so confusing, and little pieces of dialogue like that really fuck me off. So if we were to get a multi-Doctor story, I wouldn't mind it, but just clean up the dialogue and make sure that it actually makes sense. What is your favourite video on your channel? That is actually quite a cool question. I've never actually thought of that, to be honest. There's a few videos that I'm really proud of. There's some videos that I'm not proud of, but in terms of favourite, you know, I honestly can't decide. I really can't decide. When I'm making them, I'm really happy. I suppose maybe the quick summary of the 4th Doctor's era. Some of the jokes in that don't work, but I think that was pretty fun. It was really fun to do as well, and I got a lot of compliments on that video as well for my Tom Baker impression and stuff like that, so maybe that one, but there's loads that I really like. Favourite classic Who companion? Well, it's Sarah Jane. I love Sarah Jane. But if I'm not going to say her, I'll say somebody like Leela, Jamie. Do you think we'll win the Champions League? And do you think Liverpool will win the Premier League? Fucking hope Liverpool don't win the Premier League. This season is a fucking nightmare for me. Either City or Liverpool win the league, and then Leeds will get promoted. Brilliant. In terms of Champions League, we can win it. There's no reason why we can't win it, but we've also got Barcelona next, and I cannot wait to see McTominay and Chris Smalling up against Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez. It's going to be fucking great. I can't wait. If you were cast in Doctor Who, would you want to be a villain, a companion, or the Doctor himself? I mean, obviously I'd want to be the Doctor, but I wouldn't mind being the Master. I mean, you guys have probably seen that I can grow a mean beard, so I'm bringing the beard back. Do I go with a goatee though? Nah, I'd go with a full-on big bushy beard. A great big bushy beard, but preferably the Doctor. How old were you when you started being a massive nerd? I was probably born that way. I was interested in so many different things and so many like comic books and cartoons and TV shows and movies. Like, it's just something that I naturally gravitated to. I don't think there's a definitive moment. There isn't like an origin story. It just happened. I wanted to ask about anime. How do you feel about TV anime and anime movies? There's a lot of anime that I like. I mean, I'm not one of those guys that properly gets into anime. When I say anime, I mean shit like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon and Pokémon and things from my youth. But there are other shows that I've watched and I quite enjoyed, and there are a few things that I want to start getting into. So yeah, I mean, I love anime. I love Japanese culture as a whole, actually. I'm a big fan of it. And I mean, as you can see, like I say, I mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, anime has shaped my life. So, in some ways at least, anyway. If you are into anime, I suggest Banana Fish. Well, I shall put that on my list then. My favourite episode is surprisingly the episode 42 with Martha and the sun and the spaceship, yada yada. What are your thoughts on that episode? It's probably Chris Chibnall's strongest Doctor Who script. It's not great by any means, but as a whole, I think it's his best story. Personally, I prefer the concept of Power of Three, but the ending is way too rushed. 42 is a decent episode. Forgettable, but good. Was the River Song storyline good? Overall, no. It was so convoluted, and it got to a point where I'm just sort of like, yeah, just fuck off now. We know that you die. We know that you're the Doctor's wife. Great. She wasn't always a bad character. She just gradually became one, I think. Should it be developed in Series 12? Absolutely fucking not. The Doctor being romantically invested is something that I absolutely detest. Regardless of the Doctor's gender, before anyone jumps down my throat and says I'm homophobic. I didn't like it with Rose, I didn't like it with River, I didn't like the connotations with Martha, I don't like the kiss with Grace in the TV movie. I just feel like the Doctor is a good enough character that he doesn't need, or she doesn't need now, a relationship to fall back on. The character of the Doctor is so much more interesting than needing to fall in love. Which Doctors have you met so far, and what ones do you plan on meeting in the future? I have met every single classic series Doctor who is alive, so Tom, Peter Davison, Colin and Sylvester. The only one I haven't met is Paul McGann. My aim is to meet all of them. That is one thing on my bucket list. I want to meet absolutely every single one of the Doctors. Okay, so I've changed, but that's because my camera battery died and it got late. So I'm now in comfortable clothes, so that's why I look different, just to explain it. But let's carry on. What are your hopes / worries for Avengers Endgame? My worry is they force Captain Marvel in it to be the saviour. I understand what people mean, and I think the reason for people having that worry isn't because they're sexist or anything like that. It's purely because we have an attachment to pretty much every single character in the MCU, apart from Captain Marvel. Like, she's literally only just appeared. So for her to be all of a sudden the be-all and end-all, that'd be a massive middle finger to the fans. Have her do some cool shit in the movie for sure, but don't let her be the one that is the one to save the day. For me personally, I really hope that we get to see Nebula be the one who takes out Thanos. I think that one is the one for me where I'm just like, that has to happen. That would be so satisfying to see. I also worry that it won't be good, because this has been 11 years in the making, and if it's bad, then I've just wasted the last 11 years. Thoughts on Power Rangers, and if you've watched the new series Beast Morphers. I haven't watched Power Rangers for years, however, I grew up with it. I absolutely loved it. I think it was one of the best things in my childhood. I had so many different action figures and Zords and things like that, and Morphers. It was awesome. Will you return to watch new Doctor Who when they change the head writer? I think so. It's one of those where Chibnall, as I've said earlier, is the main problem, so get rid of him and bring in somebody else and I'll be more excited to watch it. I don't honestly think that Jodie is necessarily the problem. I don't think she's helping herself, but at the same time, you're only as good as the scripts that you get. Do you think that Avengers Endgame will involve villains from past MCU films, and if so, what do you think of that and the whole speculation of time travel in the film? Time travel is most definitely happening in Endgame. I already know that for a fact. You can tell from leaked set images and from what people have been saying. It seems like the only logical thing. In terms of past villains, I think they'll include a couple, yeah, but as long as it's not distracting and takes away from what is actually happening with Thanos and the snap and everything like that, then it is what it is. Which actor or actress would you like to see as a companion? Do you know, I've never actually thought of that. I think the difference is with a companion, it is literally a blank slate every single time. Like, each companion is different. No two companions are the same. Well, I suppose there's two Romanas, but apart from that. So in terms of who they get, I'm genuinely not bothered, because it's not like the Doctor. There is a set template there. People obviously will put their own spin on it, but essentially they're playing the same character, so it's not as big of a deal to me. If you were the Doctor, which fictional character from anywhere barring Doctor Who would you like as a companion? It's got to be Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock, hasn't it? Like, those two would just be so funny to watch. What music do you listen to? Well, I listen to quite a few different things. Mostly hip-hop, which is surprising to a lot of people, but I love a lot of 70s and 80s stuff. I love Linkin Park, I love Oasis, Stuff like that. If Doctor Who survives beyond Series 12 and Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker have left, do you have an opinion on who the 14th Doctor should be, or could you not give a shit? I personally don't think it will survive past Series 12. In terms of who I'd want as the Doctor, in general it would be somebody like Cumberbatch, like I mentioned earlier, but in terms of the Doctor directly after Jodie, I don't know, because certain Doctors wouldn't work if they came straight after another one, if that makes sense. So Peter Davison, following on from John Pertwee, does not work. It just doesn't feel right. Like, because Davison is such a contrast to Tom, I think that's why I like Davison so much. So I don't know, it is a tricky one on specifically the 14th Doctor, but there's a few actors that I wouldn't mind seeing as the Doctor, like as the aforementioned Cumberbatch. I mentioned Robert Carlyle before. I mean, Idris Elba would be incredible. Out of all the missing episodes of Doctor Who, which one would you want recovered the most? Fury from the Deep, without a shadow of a doubt, in terms of just that being an amazing story. But then again, Dalek Master Plan is such an epic story that I wouldn't mind seeing that as well. Would you ever get a PO box so people can send things to you to review or just keep as background decoration? I have actually thought about that. That is something that I'm definitely tempted by. It all depends on if you guys would want it. Like, I've thought about stuff like that. Merch as well. If you guys want it, just let me know and I'll try and figure something out. Do you ever think you will watch Sapphire and Steel and review it? If I'm being totally honest, I know how useless I am with this type of thing, so unfortunately, no. I wouldn't totally rule it out though. Would you ever let your girlfriend give you a makeover and film it for your channel? If people wanted to see it and Becky's up for it, which she probably will be, then yeah. Have you seen the 1960s British series, The Avengers? I have seen a few episodes and it does look good for the time. Obviously, like you say here, it is a bit camp, so I might properly give it a try one day. Troughton's Recorder, Davison's Celery, or McCoy's question marks? For me personally, it's got to be Troughton's Recorder. The Celery, whilst is interesting and also has a great meaning behind it with the whole gas thing, is just stupid. And the question marks, I've never really been a massive fan of, apart from the Umbrella. It's got to be the Recorder. If you could visit any planet in Doctor Who, which one would you choose and why? I mean, the most obvious answer there would probably be Gallifrey, just to see the Time Lord Society. Because as well at the same time, it feels like the only planet that the Doctor's been to, barring Earth, that isn't really that dangerous and isn't really a massive risk. Like, going to Skaro and seeing the Daleks is suicide. I'd say Gallifrey. Plus, it looks beautiful. What's your opinion on Partners in Crime and Planet of the Ood? Well, it's part of my second favourite series. They're both really good episodes. I wouldn't say that they're stand out or anything, but Planet of the Ood out of the two is my favourite, but Partners in Crime is a decent episode as well. There's some great back and forth with the Doctor and Donna in that. Which of the new Generation 8 starter Pokemon is your favourite? Can't actually remember the names of any of them, but so far I like the look of the Fire Rabbit one. Do you believe Doctor Who is the best sci-fi show ever? Yeah, pretty much. I think the fact that it's been going for so long, and I think because it is not tied down to anything, it literally can be anything from week to week. That's what makes it so good. What are your plans for the channel? Doctor Who channels don't tend to get millions of subscribers, so it wouldn't be feasible to make a living off of it. So will you just continue to post for pure enjoyment? I mean, that's pretty much what I was going to do anyway, you know. I never would have expected millions. I don't really want millions. I said my long-term goal would be 100k. That'd be nice. More than that, I don't really know. I just enjoy doing this. It's something that I've always wanted to do, and then I did it, and then I've somehow managed to get people watching me, so of course I'm going to carry it on. Where did the Just Wing It podcast go? Now, this is... I feel bad for this because I genuinely did enjoy doing the podcast, and a lot of you guys seem to enjoy the podcast as well. The main reason being is because with certain people besides Dan, I've tried to get them on, and for various reasons, either I'm busy or they're busy or we both are. It's just not come together. It's just not been feasible. Dan has recently got his own place and has started a new job and whatnot, so he's usually quite busy a lot of the time. So I need to organise it in a way that I can post it more often and I can do it more often and I can get people on at certain times. It's just working around different people's schedules. That's the main reason. It's not gone. It's not dead. It's not like, yeah, I only did a few and that's it. I definitely do want to carry it on. So we'll just have to see with that one. Hopefully it'll be back in the next few months once I've got shit sorted with it. Do you ever listen to these classic British rock bands? Queen, Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd and The Who. Queen I absolutely love. I always say Queen is everybody's favourite band just because as soon as a Queen song comes on, you're singing it. Listen to a bit of the Beatles and Led Zeppelin. Not really much Pink Floyd or The Who though. Will you ever come to Australia? Now Australia is a country that I wouldn't mind visiting. The only problem is I fucking hate flying, and Australia is like a half a day flight, maybe even longer in total, if I'm right. Maybe even 24 hours. I could be totally wrong on that. But yeah, I have a terrible fear of flying, so right now, probably not. Freddie or Rodney? I'm assuming you're talking about Rock and Chips or Only Fools and Horses. I love Rodney, but I think his portrayal as Freddie Robdell, Freddie the Frog, was really, really good and just proved how great Nicholas Lyndhurst is as an actor. I'd put him on equal footing, to be honest, but I was impressed by Freddie. Do you like these sitcoms, The Royal Family? No, I really don't like The Royal Family. I tried to get into it, I just didn't find it funny. Men Behaving Badly, never actually seen it, or Going Straight, but Going Straight I did want to watch. Mr. Bean I absolutely love. I think it is hilarious. Porridge 2017, oh that's interesting, not the original. Well, I have seen the original and I've seen the first episode of the remake and I wasn't overly keen on it. The original I love, but the remake not so much. I'm Alan Partridge, not actually a fan of Alan Partridge. I really like Steve Coogan, but I just don't find Alan Partridge funny. Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, never heard of it, unless it's two different things. Either way, I've not heard of them. Or it. Do you like these kids TV shows? Okay, so you've listed a lot here. Out of the ones that you've put, a few of them I never really watched, but Brum, Rosie and Jim, Bob the Builder, Postman Pat, Fireman Sam, Thomas the Tank Engine, Bill and Ben, Noddy, Pingu, Mr. Men and Thunderbirds, they were the main ones that I watched. All the others that you've put there, don't think I really watched, or if I did, I can't really remember them. Can you do an unorthodox top 20 classic Who stories, as I'm building my collection and your current suggestions have always been good and accurate to your descriptions and opinions? It depends what you mean by unorthodox, as in underrated stories, stories that aren't that great, or I don't really know exactly what you mean by that. But in terms of giving you more suggestions, like I always say, just pick a story that you like the sound of, or if you've got a particular villain that you want to see or you haven't seen from the classic era, then check them out. There's plenty of Dalek and Cybermen stories. There's quite a few really good Ice Warrior stories and Sontaran stories. The beauty of classic Doctor Who is that you don't necessarily have to watch it in order. I know I definitely didn't. But when you say unorthodox, I'm not totally sure on that. What you could just do is get a dartboard and just throw it there and see which story comes up and then get that one. When will you make a 12-part series deconstructing Hellbent? I don't want to touch that episode again, to be honest. Is it true you got your name flying in the RAF because when I was a flight sergeant we used to call our commander Wingco? If so, can you tell me if they still have any spare TARDISes hanging around? I can't afford to pay the rent and thought if I keep returning home to the same month, then perhaps I can live on a lot less and I will only need to pay for my rent once. All of it's true. 100% all of it is true, and I will lend you the TARDIS, don't worry about it. If you could design the Doctor's costume, what would your Doctor wear and why? Now, I had a similar question before, which was about what I would wear if I was the Doctor, but I think what you mean here is if I could design the costume for another Doctor, which is slightly different, so I'll answer that because I did mention what I would wear before. The honest answer to this question is it all depends on who the actor is, because certain costumes and certain bits of costume will look better on some actors than others. Some costumes look fantastic but just wouldn't work for a certain type of actor. So for example, if you put Sylvester McCoy in Tom Baker's outfit, it doesn't work, and vice versa. I think it all depends on the build of the actor, what colours suit them the best, all this sort of thing. So depending on who the Doctor is, that's the crucial part. But I always like long coats, so somewhat involving that. Have you ever watched the DW 2012 fan films? I know Dan films are normally a bit shit, but these are genuinely really good and I think you should consider giving them a go. I have seen some of them. It's not something that I check out regularly, but I'm aware of them and I think they are pretty cool from what I've seen, but like I say, I've not seen loads. What's your favourite Blake 7 episode and why? I was actually having to think about this earlier, funnily enough. I always forget the name of it, but it's the one where Anna Grant returns to Avon's life in series 3. I think that is a phenomenal episode. And also the episode called Orbit, which is towards the end of the 4th series, where it's Villa and Avon on that spaceship together. I'm not going to spoil it or tell people why it's such a good episode, because I think you need to experience it for yourself, but let's just say there is some incredible character building for both Avon in particular, but also Villa in that episode. Honourable mention will be the finale as well, because I think that was absolutely fantastic. But then again, most of Blake 7 is fantastic. Favourite character in Only Fools and Horses, and why? It's got to be Del Boy. He's just so funny. He's one of the best British characters that we have ever gotten. David Jason is perfect in that role. Who do you think will win the Premier League? If it's not United, I don't give a fuck. It's one of the two teams that I fucking hate, and I hope it's none of them, but it's gonna be. Lesser of two evils in my mind is City, but then again, I don't want them to win the quadruple, so I really don't fucking know. Do you think Man United should keep Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Absolutely 100% they should keep Solskjaer. At this point, who else do you get? Like, Ole understands the club. He's done a phenomenal job at this point. There's no reason not to give it him. Who will win the Champions League? If I was going with my heart, I would say Manchester United. If I'm being totally honest, I think it's probably either Barcelona or annoyingly Manchester City. Have you subscribed to PewDiePie? No. Not really, I don't really watch his stuff. How about you do a review of Torchwood? For me, Davis was the second golden era, just like Hartnell through Tom Baker. Torchwood was underrated in my honest opinion. Captain Jack was always so much fun. I have reviewed Torchwood before, or spoken about some of my favourite episodes before. In terms of doing more reviews, maybe that's something I'll do in the future, because I genuinely do love Torchwood as well. Is the Blake 7 episode Gambit overrated? Now, I can't fully remember it, because I often get confused with episode names for Blake 7. I don't really pay attention to him. It's more just like episode 1, 2, 3 and 4 to me, etc. But I wouldn't say any episode of Blake 7 is overrated. It is a truly phenomenal series, and I'm probably going to do a why you should watch on it at some point. Do you like Quatermass? Why/why not? I can't really say, because I haven't seen it. When did you first have one off the wrist? I'm not going to answer that one. Thoughts on Doctor Who Series 3? It's not one of my favourites. I think it has a lot of duff episodes in there, but the highs are really, really good. Like the Family of Blood story, Utopia, Smith and Jones I think is actually quite an underrated one. It's a very mixed series for me. Thoughts on Brooklyn Nine-Nine? I haven't actually seen it. My mates all watch it and they're telling me to watch it, but like with every fucking thing, it takes me a while to catch up on stuff, so when I get around to it, maybe I'll talk about it. Thoughts on The Good Place? Don't actually think I've heard of it. Thoughts on Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Really great series. I grew up with it. I think Sarah Michelle Gellar was a proper fucking badass in it, and I really like the spin-off Angel as well. It's a really great series. How many people have you killed and how have you killed them? Any tips on how to get away with it? In terms of how many I've killed, well, that would be telling. In terms of how I killed them, that would also be telling. Any tips on how to get away with it? Don't tell anyone. Do you actually own all of Classic Who on DVD, or do you just watch most of them online? I own most of them, not all of them, I've got to admit, but the problem is I don't keep them all in one place. They're all over the place, so I don't actually know where half of them are at the minute, which is annoying, because I'm thinking like, should I go and rebuy it? But then again, as soon as I rebuy it, I'll find them. But from time to time, I will switch between watching them online and watching the DVDs, because sometimes if I'm just lying in bed or something, then I'll just watch them online on my phone, because it's easier than going all the way downstairs and putting in a DVD and stuff. Have you gotten into Big Finish much? Not as much as I would like. I don't really have time to listen to audio stuff, but in the future I hope to just sort of sit down and go through a few stories and actually properly listen to it. Well, not all of it, because that's probably impossible at this point, but as much as I can. Are you a fan of the X-Files? I've got to admit, I'm not massive on it. Not to say that I don't like it or I think it's bad, because it is definitely good, but it's not something that I will actively go back to on a regular basis. Which TARDIS team is your favourite, or who would be your dream TARDIS team? In terms of my favourite one, it's got to be the Fourth Doctor, Sarah and Harry. That would probably be my dream one as well. I just think all three of those characters work so well together. But there's so many different TARDIS teams that I love that it is hard to pick one. But I think the one that really stands out for me is Tom, Sarah and Harry. Favourite Man United player of all time? Gotta be Paul Scholes. Easily. I love Paul Scholes. Also fellow Ginge. Man City or Liverpool? Drink bleach. That's what I'd rather do than pick one. Although I did say before that City are the lesser of two evils, so I guess I'm going to have to say Man City. Or go get the bleach. Gen 4 or Gen 5? Honestly, I really don't have an attachment to either of them, personally. I think around that time, because it had switched to DS, I stopped playing the games for a bit. and I didn't come back until Gen 6 when I finally got like a 3DS and stuff to play X and Y. But if I had to pick, I'd probably lean more towards Gen 4. Who is the one person you want to meet and why? Honestly, don't think I can answer that because I don't actually know. There's plenty of people that I want to meet. There's plenty of people at future conventions that I'm going to try and meet. Like I mentioned before, my goal is to meet all of the Doctors. I want to meet some of the Blake 7 actors if I can. Certain musicians that I want to meet. Certain other actors that I'd want to meet. There isn't like one specific answer. There's just like a number of people. So, who was your childhood crush? I don't actually remember. There was so many people on TV that I was just like, oh, I really like them. Or in movies that I was just like, oh, I really like them. Least favourite Pokemon? Do you know, I don't actually know. There's so many, and there's so many ones that are just flat out terrible that it is hard to pick. I think the one that I'd have to say, and this isn't purely based on the specific Pokemon itself, it's the nature of how you have to get this Pokemon and the amount of annoyance and hours wasted trying to find this thing, was Feebas. If you know about Feebas in Generation 3, like the original Ruby and Sapphire, you'll know it's a fucking nightmare. And even though it is an alright Pokemon and it evolves into a cool Pokemon, the idea of looking for that fucking thing is so annoying. So for that reason, I'd have to say Feebas. But in terms of like one that I have literally no attachment to and I think is a terrible one, there are loads of others that I can't really think of right now. Are there any songs or musicians that people wouldn't expect you to listen to? Well, as I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of hip hop. People seem to always be surprised by that, so I guess that. Have you seen Trainspotting, and if so, what was your opinion on it? One of my very first videos actually was in fact a review of Trainspotting. I did this series called Bucket List Movies where I was watching films that I hadn't seen before that, you know, everyone talks about as being a great film, and then reviewing them, and Trainspotting was one of them. So if you go on my channel and go to the very bottom or search by oldest first, you'll probably see it. What's your opinion on Godzilla? As in the 2014 movie, or the original movie, or Godzilla in general? It's cool. To all of them. Is your hair two-toned or is it the lighting you use? It's a bit of both. I mean, at the minute, because I've got a bit of a fade going on, it does look a bit different, but the lighting sometimes is really fucking annoying. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to do what you do? Don't. Nah, in terms of like YouTube and stuff, just do it and just be yourself and don't expect to just all of a sudden have an audience. Don't expect to make money from it. Just do it because you want to do it and because you love it and because what you're doing is the best possible thing that you can put out. Make sure that you have something to say. Don't just do it for the sake of doing it. Are you musical at all? I've heard you say that you rap, which is awesome, but do you play any instruments or produce your own rap music? If so, would love to hear some. In terms of instruments, no, I can play a little bit of keyboard, but not that much. In terms of rap, like, I have been tempted to release on this channel some songs and whatnot, but I just don't know if people would be interested in hearing them, like, or enough people, because a lot of people would just be like, Wingy, this is cringe, just don't do it. We'll have to see if in the future I put anything out on it. I'd like to, but I just don't know about the reception. Do you ever write your own Doctor Who stories, or maybe think of concepts or ideas that you think that would make a great episode of Doctor Who? Again, would love to hear some. Yes, I do. I would love to make a fan film, and I have got this idea, not necessarily for like a full-length fan film, but like a little mini short film. I've got some ideas that at some point I would like to do. How feasible it's going to be, I really don't know, because obviously it depends on budget and actors and all this sort of stuff, but I wouldn't rule it out. I definitely want to do it at some point. If you were cast as the Doctor, what sort of Doctor would you be and what would your preferred costume be? Now, I mentioned in part 1, I assume, about this specific coat that I would wear, which is like a great coat. It's kind of like Captain Jack's but khaki. Everything else I'm not too bothered about. In terms of the personality, I'd like to be a Doctor who gets things wrong and a more vulnerable Doctor, but also one who is very sarcastic. So I suppose kind of a mix of Davison and Colin / Tom and a few of the other Doctors, and Capaldi as well, but also just have me in it. What's one thing that you regret? See, the thing is, there are things in my life where I look back on and I think maybe that shouldn't have gone the way that it did, or maybe I shouldn't have done that, maybe I shouldn't have said that, and all these sort of things. But the older I get, the more and more I sort of think to myself, well, you shouldn't really have regrets, because even those bad things, or things that you aren't necessarily proud of, or things that didn't go the way that you expected them to or wanted them to, they shape who you are now. And you never know, maybe if one thing that you look back on and think, oh god, I wish that didn't happen, maybe that thing led to something else. So that's the way that I like to look at it, really. Burgers or hot dogs? I honestly like both, but I would probably choose a burger. Where would you want to go traveling, and is Australia up there? Well, I mentioned Australia before. I definitely like to go there, but it's not top of the list. I would say France is the main one for me. I'd love to go back to Ireland again. America's up there for me as well. I'd love to go to New York and LA. Japan is another one that I think would be really cool. Why are you ginger? Who says I'm ginger? That's a meme reference. I hope somebody gets that. Have you watched Gotham? Bits of it, but I think it's fucking shit. I know that's going to piss people off, but I just don't like how it's changed so much of Batman's lore, and certain villains are coming up when they shouldn't be, and Bruce Wayne is already training, and things like that really bug me and really irritate me. Favourite second Doctor story? Easily The Invasion. It's 8 parts of brilliance. You've got Cybermen in it, of course. You've got basically the blueprint for the Pertwee era. Troughton's amazing. Just a brilliant, brilliant story. What's your favourite lamp? I don't know, but I love lamp.